You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, we're at the end of Pride Month, and it has been quite the month. Just counting down the days until July because, quite frankly, I'm a little excited about vacation. I'm not doing anything for the 4th of July. I'm really not even in the groove for 4th of July. I just kind of feel like it's irrelevant. I mean, the only thing that I celebrate on July 4th is the birth of my best friend, Jamarcus Henderson. So, I'll be celebrating that. And he also has a new single coming out on his 30th birthday, which is Boy from the South, which you can stream on all major platforms. So look forward to that for those who are Jamarcus Henderson stans like myself. You all should be, because, the music you just heard before this podcast started was produced by him. You know that cute instrumental that you listen to? That's him. So, you are fans without realizing it. But I'm looking forward to the following week because I'll be in New York. I already have plans. It's been interesting planning like a trip. Like I haven't really went to New York for leisure. I've always kind of went for business. Like I've always had that saying, and if anytime I'm in New York, I'm there for business. But we really, Mr. Johnson and I really are planning this thing out. Like we're there for multiple days, a whole hotel, all this other stuff. And we're really, trying to make stuff happen. Now, the one thing that's been interesting, and I don't want to get too much into it until, we go and I'll give y'all the recap. But one of the things that I've been looking at with New York is that some of these brunch places that look fun, right, don't do reservations. And I'm sitting here we don't do no reservations in a city that I don't live in. That's just not what I do. But it's been interesting to see it because everyone's been like, oh, you just got to go to New York and just, have a good time and just kind of explore. And, I'm like, yeah, I get all of that. That's cool. But when it comes to, my eating and my time, those are two things I don't waste. I don't believe in wasting time. I don't believe in wasting food. So for me, it's the no reservations. There's a lot of great places that I love in Philadelphia that don't have reservations, and they think that shit is cute. And I'm like, but then you'll do caviar or Uber Eats. And so a lot of those places that don't do reservations, I will order, from the app because I just can't wait. I don't, what I'm saying? I can't wait. There was a restaurant in Philly that's no longer with us anymore because the owner is sadly no longer with us, Kevin Parker, who owned Miss Tootsie's. And Miss Tootsie's was a very I'll say this. It was one of the few good soul food restaurants downtown. It was on South Street. Loved me some Miss Tootsie's, okay? But unless there was a party of 6, you couldn't get a reservation. You had to basically, wait. And a couple of date nights, where I was, I tried to go at 8 because that's always my favorite dinner time hour is 8 o'clock. It was 9 o'clock by the time I got seated. So, and then I tried to go on a Friday night, so I really felt like a bird. But it's just I refuse to do that. I refuse to take unnecessary L's in my 30s. The days of just waiting for food, we're not doing that. The days of just rolling the dice and seeing what happens on a night, I did a lot of that in my youth, and I'm not making those mistakes in my adulthood. Let me clarify, my grown-uphood, because adulthood is 18. I was definitely taking some L's at 18. But I don't know. I'm at the age where I'm not waiting in lines for things. I'm not doing massive crowded shit unless it's I don't know, something, the papal visit or, when Hillary came to Philadelphia, a candidate's rally, the president or a presidential candidate is coming or something like that, that's going to be a life-changing experience. But just putting myself in the throes of excessive waiting and times, I just don't have the patience. I just don't. Especially when I know, as someone who's going out, that there are better ways and avenues. So, one of the things I had to just kind of put my foot down with some of my friends who are in New York, who was trying to convince us to not do reservations. I was like, I can't. That's the line. Especially when it's a hot ass summer. This summer has gotten hot, hot, hot. It is hot as hell. And so I'm definitely not waiting outside. And then it's on a Sunday for brunch. No. So I found a great place that has reservations. I won't make the reveal until I actually try it. Now I'm looking at the pictures. The pictures look good. So I can't say it's great. But I mean, and I don't trust reviews online, y'all, because you already know the food critic in me. I don't trust it. Like what I've learned about like food reviews is that most of what I will tell you is that when you look at restaurants online, most of them, 80% of people, when they go write a review, it either goes two ways. Either there are the types of reviewers who are just only going to do negative reviews, or it's going to be people that's going to say good things. So they're really going to come in with like oh, I love this. This is a great thing, yada, yada, yada. So they're going to come with that kind of energy. I'm trying to think, do I often write good reviews? I rarely write bad reviews on like Yelp or things like that. I've only done it for services, but not restaurants. I typically, if I don't like the restaurant, I just don't mention it. Like I just don't even say anything about it. Like I don't even post it. There's like a lot of restaurants in Philadelphia, y'all, that I've been to that you'll see on my Instagram and my Instagram story. But there's a couple of restaurants that you don't even know I've went to that I never post about. And a lot of times people are like, have you been here? Have you been there? I'm like, I probably have. And if I haven't posted it, it's either two reasons. Either I thought the food was horrible or it just wasn't anything worth posting about, which isn't a bad thing per se, but it's not like, oh my God, this needs to go on the gram. Not necessarily. Um, because I do know the value of at least my social media account. And we all do, right? You know how many these businesses and companies get free advertising off of our asses when we post. And granted, when I do it, oftentimes the food is either being comped or I'm being paid or whatever the case is. In some type of regard, there is something of value transactional in that situation. But I see a lot of people out here just love posting food. And I'm not saying don't, but just recognize the agency you have in that situation. Like you better be getting the appetizer for free or trying to or something. And I'm not talking about the small businesses that are, trying to get up. But I'm talking about these massive companies that have tons of employees. Like don't be out here mass promoting Cheesecake Factory. Like don't do it. Don't go out here giving Chili's and Applebee's like all the promo. Like if you're gonna do it, support the small black business or the woman owned bakery or something like that. Like that you want people to know about and support because they are, getting by, right? That requires the influencer touch. But some of these major companies, they don't need your promo unless you get an influencer's check or something. Just there's no need. Please don't. And especially when they're not good. Like I'll tell you one place that is not good that I don't think I shared the drink was a oh my goodness, Candy Factory. Is it Candy Factory? It's been so long that I can't even call it by its real name, but it's something factory. Now I feel bad because it's out of my mind because I didn't eat the food. I've talked about it on my podcast before, but I was just like, mm-mm. Um, because I was just like, Sugar Factory. That's what it was called, Sugar Factory. Which again, very innocuous name, very forgettable. But yeah, Sugar Factory. When I took my younger brother out. What was his 19th birthday? Got him a drink, got me a drink. Mine to alcohol, his didn't. The bill came out to like $100 something, and I'm sitting there looking like we just got drinks. We didn't even. I guess the gratuity and everything. But I was like, what did we get? Like, I don't even recall. We just got like two big ass drinks. But anyway, that's something that like I think I posted on Instagram, but I had to make sure that on this podcast I had to clarify the photos were me celebrating him. It wasn't about the place. It was more about me and him. It wasn't about anything else. But he wanted to go because again, when you're young, you can take those L's. But see, the L came out of my account, not his, because he was like, 19 freshman in college. So he didn't have to go through it. I had to go through it so that he didn't have to go through it, if that makes sense. Like at first it was gonna be him and his friends going, but then I guess because they saw those prices, they were like, oh, everybody's not down to go to Sugar Factory, which makes it because even as my grown ass, I mean, I don't feel comfortable spending like dropping $50 for one drink, especially when the drink isn't strong. Like I'm paying for aesthetics. These are what they call New York prices or LA prices. Yeah, no, wasn't a fan. Wasn't a fan. So yeah, but anywho, 4th of July, I'm probably just gonna be here chilling. My bestie's going to New Orleans. New single coming out, so he is definitely getting excited for that. This, I guess that's fourth. I guess this is this upcoming 4th of July weekend. So I'm probably chilling. I don't really have any major plans. Because the following week is going to be like the weekend. So I'm putting all my energy and my mind in that direction and waiting for a couple of other things to come through. So this week, so before I get into this week, because this week is a lot, right? And I say this every fucking week. I feel like this year has just been a fucking year. And not a bad, so I'm practicing this mindset of, okay, the world is in chaos, but there has been some beautiful things that have happened. And so I try to focus my mind on those things, but I'm also still acknowledging the things that are out of my control, right? Like Roe versus Wade being overturned, stuff like that. But anywho, before I get into that, I made an appearance on a podcast this week, Woke AF podcast, which is hosted by Danielle Moody. She is a big deal. MSNBC commentator. She writes for Daily Beast like I do. She's all over the place. And she's got this really great podcast called Woke AF. And she really is like a political commentator to the nine. She's really really good at what she do. Black, queer, very intersectional podcast, very great topics. She's more focused on the political end, but she brought me on, and I was surprised because I didn't even know she knew who I was. It's just interesting because she's inserted interwebs of like folks that are like in the same media circles, but more progressive media circles. So you just never know who knows you. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But I got an email like, hey, she wanted me to come on the show and she wanted me to talk about my book, The Case for Council Culture. So if you want to hear about some of the things I talk about in the book, which we don't talk about everything clearly, but she was just, I guess she saw the marketing, the promotion, was curious about it, but she was super supportive. It was a great interview. And it was real raw. Like we really got to sit and have a real conversation. The podcast episode, I think, was like about 30 minutes. And we just was having a great conversation about cancel culture, the issues that have been going on this week. And it was just great to be a special guest. So anytime I'm a special guest on people's podcasts, which has been happening a lot more lately. And I'm actually going to be on another person's podcast sometime this week. But it's been happening. People have been asking me to come on their show. And this is flattering because it's someone who does not have guests on my show unless they're like of some extreme necessity. It's very nice that other people, bring me on their show and I get to be special guests. So that was fun. So tune into that episode. Again, it's on Apple. You can find it on most streaming platforms. It's Woke AF is the podcast, and Danielle Moody's the host. And the episode is called The Case for Council Culture. So it's not hard to find me there. And she does her podcast like daily or something like that. So you might have to scroll down a little bit to find me. But we did it this week, so it's really recent. I won an award this week from this incredible organization, Carr Barth Associates, which is an equity firm in the city of Philadelphia. They awarded me with their Community Advocate of the Year award for all the, I guess, advocacy work that I do in media and in, social issues. And it was a pleasant surprise. It was a nice rooftop reception that was in Bala which is like on the main line, which is like Philly adjacent. But Very, very nice event. Very nice rooftop. Great food, cocktails. It was fabulous, and all of my friends came and showed love and support. I was actually giving the keynote address, and they surprised me with the award. And it was a Pride themed event that they hosted and had. So it was a really great event, and I looked really, really good. I had a cute summer outfit. I'm really loving summer. Summer is becoming my vibe. I'm really loving summer clothes. I like love short sleeved beach button up shirts. I'm wearing like tie dye tank tops. I'm doing hoochie daddy shorts in various colors. Shout out to American Eagle for like 95% of my wardrobe. Um, I'm doing it all. I'm loving the summer. I'm getting like new Crocs. I'm wearing flip flops. I'm getting my toenails painted. So it would make sense for me to wear flip flops. I'm paying attention to the pedicures more because I've always been into manis, but like I'm really getting serious about pedis because if the feet are going to be out, they have to look right. It's been a really, it's been a really fun summer. I've been doing some new things and being more out and open because I know once it gets cold again, these toes right here that you all are seeing, they're going away. But I love playing with colors too. I've been into that too. Like I got my nails done this week and my toenails too. And I've been into this rose gold sparkle thing. I'm into rose gold this season. Right now I am. Last year I had a huge obsession with teal, like mint and teal. That was like my entire like colors last year. This year I'm still in love with teal. I still think it's refreshing, but I've been like really into like pinks and like again rose gold is like my vibe right now. That's what I'm on. Has been rose gold and light blue. I've been into light blue too, like blue. So it's those are the colors I'm feeling right now for summer. Those are my summer colors. I know last year you all remember I had that obsession with mint, and it was like I was mint out, and I'm still loving some mint. Or teal, however you want to call it, but I'm really into pink right now. I'm really feeling pink, and I'm really feeling blues. That's like been my vibe right now. So we're experimenting, doing some things. Um, I also went to this event. There's been a lot of random events going on in Philly, but I'm enjoying myself. So there's an event called Summerfest that I went to, which was at Braheim Schwarz. I'm mispronouncing this. This is like this German beer food spot with the big Schwarz and Bulgarian pretzels and all that. So I went to this event and it was called Summerfest, and they spelled it Sommerfest, like Summerfest, like German. It was a cool event. I had this big ass huge like beer mug, which I didn't drink beer. I drank cider. Y'all know I don't do beer, but like they had cider, so that worked out. And the food was actually pretty good, even though some of it was like, but I had to, mix it up a little bit. But the food was good. The vibe was cute. Those pretzels were really good. I'm not even a soft pretzel person, but that was a good ass soft pretzel. Um, but it was fun. They were like wearing costumes, and it was definitely giving Oktoberfest in the summer. Um, so that was fun, but it was something different that I went to. I was invited because y'all, it was I had a VIP pass. I'm gonna do VIP whether we in Summerfest, Oktoberfest, whatever. We gonna do VIP. So yeah, this week was chill. I wrote a really long big story, so I'm processing that. I did a bunch of interviews last week, and I interviewed a very important person for a big story that I'm doing in Philadelphia. I haven't done a big long profile like this. Well, I take that back. I did a big story earlier this year for New York Magazine, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, but I did this big story. Um, it's a profile actually, and I don't really do like profiles on people. So this was fun. This was experimental for me because I don't really do that many profiles. But this was like a deep dive on this one particular person that I'm actually fascinated with in Philly politics. And so I won't tell who the person is, but for now, I want to surprise you all. But I've been following this person for several months, and I'm excited because have finally done my first draft of this. It's like 4,000 words, and it's not hard to do those type of stories because I've written a book. I feel like more like go giddy about it. Like doing long form pieces like that are often like you're excited because you're like, yes, money, more money, lots of money. But then you're also like, damn, this is a lot of fucking work. Can I fill the gap? And then you take a step back and you realize, actually, when you start writing, you're like, actually, I got more to say than I thought I would have to say. And then you realize you have to curate and organize to actually close the word count. I'm always in my mind like I'm never gonna have enough words. And then I realize actually I have a lot of fucking words. Now I have to rearrange and carve out some stuff and edit some things out to make it all fit. So it's a process, but I've gotten better through time. I've been doing long form pieces like this for several years. But every time you get a new one, it's always something different, right? Because it's a different beast. But it was fun to really work on this. After I wrote the book, I kind of wanted to take a break from doing a lot of big, long form writing because, y'all, this book is like over 250 pages. So I was like, I need a break. I just want to do op-eds. I just want to do other things. But it's been a nice little healthy break since the book, couple of months, and it's also about writing things that you want to write about, like stuff that just grabs you. And I'm just like, I really want to write this. This is something I want to write about this person. I have a lot to say. They're gonna probably have a lot to say, which they did. And those interviews were fun. And there were some interesting people that agreed to do this interview that I was like, wow, I'm shocked this person actually took my call. So it's fun. I don't wanna tell it. See, this is how I fuck up and slip up and say something. So anyway, it's gonna be a great story. It will be in the September issue of Philly Mag. Yes, because magazines, it's a process, right? Colors, photos, all that kind of stuff. So yes, September. So it's not that far away, but it'll be in the September issue, um, and that'll happen. So that's all I can say on that. But I do want to talk about another piece real quick before I get to my other stuff because people have been asking me about this, and I actually talked about some of that in the interview on Woke AF. So there was this cover story for New York Magazine called Cancelled at 17 that talked about this young man who was half white and half Filipino. His name Diego. That was the name in the story. His real name is not Diego, but they called him Diego in the story. And apparently Diego basically, I mean, it's a long ass read, but I'll make it quick. Long story short, Diego shared the nudes of his girlfriend without her consent. The girlfriend basically, it got around campus. They're in high school, and the girl was humiliated and embarrassed. She reported it. The school didn't really respond aggressively to address it, but the students on campus took matters in their own hands, and several students who also had experiences of being, sexually harassed or exploited or different ways compiled a list that they put in bathrooms talking about watch out for these individuals. And Diego was named alongside other boys who were as well. And so, this person went through the bouts. People, separate themselves from him. They isolate themselves from him. They didn't want to hang out with him. They called him a loser, and they just basically, a lot of people turned away from him, and he felt the shame of what he did in a way that made him feel like, wow, he's being canceled. And that was the way the story was being framed. The story got a lot of backlash, as you can fucking imagine, in my opinion, as it should, because one, a white woman wrote the story, which is, and the premise of it spent this time, like, I guess throwing a pity party for this young, I mean, he's 17, but he's about to be a young adult, that did something that was horrendous that would have not had any other consequences. And this is what I talked about in my book, The Case for Cancel Culture, which you can pre-order, as you all know, that, you know, like, for starters, we spend so much time in this community, in this culture. I was actually talking to one of my good friends about this around Kanye, and I think about this a lot, and I understand people who are trying to empathize with Kanye West's his mental health. I'm not taking that from him, but I want to be clear that sometimes I feel like people unknowingly, not on purpose, will. I think that sometimes people will. It's easy that when we find out a person has some mental health issues, it's easy for society to easily use as a scapegoat for all of the behavior that these people do. Not to say that those individuals are not saying that what that person did is wrong, but there's always that like clause that people do. It makes me think about conversations about R. Kelly. Like a lot of R. Kelly supporters will say things like, he suffered from sexual abuse at a young age, which is true. That Chris Brown was in an abusive household, so he grew up around this type of violence, and that will lead to X, Y, and Z. But here's the issue that I always push on this, is that while those things are true, we have to be careful not to equate those kind of experiences to behavior, folks. It reminds me of when people say things like, oh, well, this person's from this community, so this person is going to be bound to do this. We get into the blurry lines of stereotyping. And I think sometimes, and I really do believe this, that those who do experience some level of trauma or strife will weaponize that to justify the harm they do. And I have seen that happen before. And I think we as individuals all have experiences that are traumatic in our lives, but it will never justify our behavior, right? Like I could create 1,000 reasons why I could do something problematic. And to be honest with you, it does not deserve to be justified sometimes, right? Like if I chose to do something problematic, like if I went outside and I slapped somebody or whatever, you know what I could do? I could say 1,000 things. I could say, I've had a lot of trauma in my life as a Black queer man who's been bullied, and I got fed up, and I went outside and I just caused harm. Like this is the same type of stuff we see happen with violent young white men who society will say the lone wolf theory, that this person was isolated and that's why they came with a shotgun and shot up the school. Like that's the kind of stuff that happens, right? And I just want, in my book, I talk a lot about power and how we cannot forget power, because power is what makes the difference between how much sympathy we really should be giving certain individuals based on whatever types of situations they claim they might be going through. I think that Kanye West gets excessively so much grace that he purposely squanders and misuses. I'm in the class of thought that Kanye has done, Kanye continues, let me be clear, continues to be misogynistic, problematic, and just a horrible person. And this whole idea of cancel, right? Kanye ain't being canceled. Kanye's not being canceled, right? Because of power, right? Because he's a fucking billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's a man. He's a cishet man. And he's a billionaire. And so I don't have that much empathy for the fucked up things that he do, because with those resources, right, he could be able to use those resources to get the kind of help that can make him less of a harm. I'm more concerned about the powerless people, the powerless folks that struggle with mental health issues, that don't have any resources, don't have any industry people, like all these people around him, right? And no one's pulling him aside, because to me, I think part of this is an act. Like some of it might be valid. There is something going on over there with him. But I think the problem is that we're as observers, right? We're put in this position to have to litigate to ourselves, well, how much is mental health and how much is everything else? But for me, I think the reality is that the fact that he acknowledges that he has a problem, which he has, then he has an obligation, right, to do the work, and he's not doing the work. So that's a choice at that point for me. And by him making the decision to continue not to do that work while continuing to harm other people, I'm going to spend more energy looking at the people he harmed and the issues he's harmed, rather than trying to keep on creating this grace for him. That's the same way I feel about Chris Brown. Chris Brown has continued. Okay, like everybody acts like it's the Rihanna situation. It's bigger than Rihanna. Chris Brown has continually have shown toxic, violent acts since Rihanna. Okay, like if it was like to me, like I'll give you an example. The Chris Rock Will Smith situation. I believe deep down inside that incident with Chris Rock and Will Smith, that is an isolated incident, that does not speak or define Will Smith's entire character. Clearly there was a situation that escalated that, but that's an isolated incident. And I believe that in isolated incident situations, I can see people considering and reconsidering and giving certain levels of grace. But it's funny to me how people were quick to completely condemn Will Smith, but you got Kanye out here doing what he's doing. And I get that there's other people, right, that are saying that the same people that won't cancel Kanye are also not canceling other people. But I'm not worried about those people because those people are what I call trash. So I think that if we're going to do that, then we fall in the trap of oppression Olympics and the sorts. Like who did worse and who did this and who did that. But again, I have to tell people it boils back to power. Kanye is one of the most powerful musicians and entertainers in the world. And he used his global platform to endorse and support a white supremacist. He also not only does not support the white supremacists, but he also uses his platform to speak disparagingly about black women. He has used his platform to project ahistorical narratives and also endorse ideas around slavery, like slavery is a choice, and comments about Harriet Tubman and slut shaming his wife and other women. Like this man has used his platform to ignite these things, and he consistently has done it. He's also raised his platform for people like the baby, right? Big ass homophobes and Marilyn Manson, who's been accused of multiple examples of abuse. He purposely chooses to do these things. He purposely gives his platform to alleged abusers and homophobes and folks like that. This is active. He does this and he relishes in it, and it's intentional. So I don't see how the mental health is doing that, because that's the person that's choosing to be a provocateur. Like that's what he does. That's what he likes to do. He likes that kind of attention. He's made himself this way. He's completely made himself that person. So it's hard. And then the reason why I circle all this together is that in these conversations about cancel culture, we're spending more time talking about the people who are allegedly being canceled than talking about the people that were harmed by them. And this connects me to my next topic about this January 6th insurrection hearings. This week, y'all, has been just, I get it, they're making the fucking case. And some of this stuff is very, very just like, oh my God, right? And it's a lot, right? It's a lot to process. But I'm also thinking about what also happened during an insurrection in those hearings that took place, right? And some of the people that were there. I'm thinking of Shay Moss and Lady Ruby Friedman, who testified, right? They were ordinary black women. They were ordinary poll workers. And Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump came after them, right? The lies that were said about them, they put a target on their back. One of those black women were specifically targeted by Kanye West's publicist, who basically tried to push them on election fraud. Like tried to get them to coax them, one of the workers, into trying to admit to election fraud in support of Trump. Now, to me, if Kanye was a man of integrity, right? Why did Kanye fire this publicist? Why did he not denounce that behavior? Why did he not call that out? Because he was a part of that. Because that's what he supported. Because he was all up in the mix with Trump. I mean, this is a man who's worn Confederate flags, okay? Like, and I'm referring to Kanye. Like, this is something that was done by design. He was aligning himself and using his resources to aid an entire election scandal. Like, there's no integrity there. Like, I have no respect for this man. I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't. The any level of sympathy that I could have for him, I just don't. And I'm not in the business of comparing him to other people because, quite frankly, all these people can kiss my ass, right? All of these very toxic people. But I promise you that some of these toxic people, right, that are also being considered for cancellation, while many people may or may not cancel them, what's funny about their situation to me is that they don't have the same visibility and traction as Kanye West, right? Like, I don't like Kodak Black. Kodak Black is terrible. But Kodak Black does not have the same platform and visibility as Kanye West. Like, Kanye West is a global superstar. Kodak Black, he's nationally known, whatever. He's known in hip hop circles. I'm not going to look into what they've done, right? You look at people like Nicki Minaj, right? Like, Nicki has a global platform. There's different levels to this, and in my book I do talk about this. Like, all cancellations are not the same. That's the name of one of my chapters. There's levels to this. That's not the name of one of my chapters, but I talk about this in my book, how there's levels. And so when I think about what happened at these hearings, it just the continual, the perpetual notion of trying to see something in these people. Listen, you can like their old music. You can not deny their talent. No one's saying that. But let's understand that these people, don't feel bad for a billionaire. Don't feel bad for a billionaire. Don't feel bad for somebody that holds that kind of capital and power that really is out here doing some real dirty shit. Because if you watch those interviews and you hear these two black women who talk about how they had targets on their back, and to know that a black man like Kanye West, who has the influence he has, is doing what he's doing. You know what's weird to me too is this, like, how is it that, and I've thought about this in some of my experiences with people in these situations, right? That how is it that when when they have these issues, right, they go into white supremacy. Like, why is it that these individuals don't, become reckless with their money? Like, Britney Spears dealt with mental health issues, right? But Britney wasn't out here becoming a white supremacist. She didn't become a racist. She didn't become any of those things, right? But, like, all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that Kanye, that whatever it was, turned him into a white supremacist, turned him into somebody that was aiding, election corruption. Like, I just think to myself, is this not who this man really is? Except that it's being amplified to a certain degree. Like, I don't believe that, there's no research in my mind that somehow mental health turns you into a white supremacist, turns you into a big ass misogynist. Like, it's like when I hear racists do that, like when white women do this thing, like, oh, I was having a bad day, so that's why you decide to call the cops and say the N-word. Like, you had a bad day. Listen, I've had a bad day, but I walk around slapping people and calling cops and becoming a complete total, like, I don't. Okay, right? Like, I just think we should just think about largely some of these issues, because it's easy to think about what other people are quote unquote getting away with, but I'm also looking at some of the people that continue to do more harm and how harder it's going to be for them to get away with it, right? Like, there are some corny comedians that say transphobic, homophobic stuff every day, but Dave Chappelle got a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix, and he's spewing transphobia. It's not the same as the corny dude on Twitter saying some dumb shit. I know that we've been taught in society to view people as equals. We should view people, we should acknowledge that every human deserves basic equal rights and protections. We should do that. But what we should not do is be blind to the different power dynamics and privileges of individuals. Like, those are two different things. But sometimes I hear people say things like, well, why is this person better than another person? I'm not saying better. We're not making a value judgment on who they are as a person. What we're doing is we're assessing power. And in the world, there are people who have inherently more power than others. That doesn't mean that because you have more power, you're better. It just means that you have more power and privilege. And so we should assess the level of risk involved based on your power. And that doesn't define you in a ranking order of quality. It speaks to quantity. because you can have no power and be a lovely, kind person. You could be, power does not define quality. And I think sometimes those assessments is what gets us thrown off in the conversation around cancel culture. This book is gonna be fabulous. I can't talk enough about it. Y'all know February 21st, 2023. Y'all know what's going down. But I just am starting to really recognize how this book is a movement. This book is bigger than just the topic alone, but how relevant it connects to everything that's going on in this world. And talking to Danielle Moody really made me realize that this is going to be a tool for a lot of folks and having these conversations, and also how they view conflict in the future. Like, this is a big damn deal. So just, I'm feeling myself right now, but I'm really, it just feels good when you're having these conversations with people who you sometimes don't know that see what you're seeing and all that. So, long story short, the January 6th hearings are going on. I mean, they can't prosecute him or, indict him, but I hope the Justice Department is paying attention and Merrick Garland is paying attention. He's all up in the Ukraine right now. But I'm going to need you to get back here, Attorney General, and look at these hearings and start, making justice ring for what it's worth. So there was a big moment in gun control this week, but nobody cared because other stuff was going on. So nobody actually cared what was going on. And there's no shade. It's just that, for the first time, a bipartisan gun control bill has come. They're closing the boyfriend loophole. They're asking for some level of age requirements in some areas. No universal background checks. No ban on assault rifles. But, some progress in some levels, right? It's the first time in like 30 years any comprehensive gun violence bill has been passed in Congress in this way. So I guess we'll take what we can get. But the emphasis that the Mitch McConnells of the world were so fixated on making this bill not be something that will trample the Second Amendment. And they were just so big on clarifying that. So that's why you don't have any ban on assault rifles. That's why you don't have any universal background checks. That's why a lot of the real meteor things that people really wanted isn't happening. It's limits and conditions, but there's some progress. But it's, it is what it is. Which brings me to my next big conversation. The Supreme Court decisions that came and are still coming. We're not done yet. Supreme Court is just going to make it rain with the bullshit. So I knew that it was going to be a shitty week when the first round of decisions came coming. So before we get into Roe versus Wade, because I know that's what we're here for, right? Baby, this is what you came for. So my bestie Amanda did not know that song was written by the Taylor Swift. Yes, Rihanna sung it and sung it well, okay? And it was Calvin Harris who produced the song. But when Calvin Harris was dating Taylor Swift used a different name under her name. She did not use her real name when she wrote the song, and the song was a hit. So, just fun trivia. But anywho, so the Supreme Court decisions. One of the things that came out before Roe versus Wade was overturned was that Miranda rights, police basically now, there was the whole situation where if police did not give you your Miranda rights and, things were being said and used against you in the court of law, right, because you have that right to remain silent, right? All of that, when that did not happen, that can be used by lawyers who was defending the person who was arrested to, omit or take things out and in that situation, right? Now, if a police officer so happens, quote unquote, to forget to give you your Miranda rights, they don't have to face any type of legal persecution or prosecution or whatever that is being thrown out. So basically, I would say, in my mind, that Miranda rights are dead, but people say there's levels to it, conditions to it. Sure, but to me, I feel like the fact that the Supreme Court has now created this blurry line and has created a loophole for law enforcement, they will abuse it. Let's just keep it clear. They didn't abolish Miranda rights, but pretty much Miranda rights aren't as strong as they were before. They've weakened Miranda rights. So individual civilians, disproportionately black and brown ones, who oftentimes experience a lot of problems with police and have bad police encounters, they're even more so not going to be protected. What is the rationale? It don't even matter. They're conservatives. That's the rationale. So also controlled carry. They banned that New York state policy that said that you cannot carry a gun, on you. Like there's laws in New York and other areas that are trying to adopt them, right? That was basically saying that you couldn't just open carry in places. There you could have open carry bans in certain parts. And New York was one of those states, and also New York City, that was very big on that. The Supreme Court says that that violates the Second Amendment. So that means that states will be able to have the authority to basically do. Actually, no, they can't just have these banned open carry rules in areas. So some folks can walk around carrying guns, and if a gun goes off, who knows what the fuck will happen. So again, just in public spaces, there's no protections. I mean, they just want the guns. They just, it's just what the fuck. And then we get to Roe versus Wade overturned, which now the Supreme Court has made it a state's issue. So now states will determine if abortions can happen. They've given the rights back to the states, which now we have seen several states. I would predict maybe half of the United States will probably ban abortions in some type of level. Many have already begun to. Like I think Missouri and others are already beginning to stop women's right to choose, right? To decide if they want to have an abortion or not. And it's going to be a lot of consequences, right? It's going to be a lot. I'm in Pennsylvania. We have a ridiculous Republican-controlled legislator. They can probably put some restrictions in place. As of right now, it doesn't seem like anything of me has happened. But, at this point, anybody could do whatever. It's only been a couple of days, and we've already seen countless, hundreds upon hundreds of abortion appointments get canceled across the country because of this decision. 5 Republicans, 5 conservative Supreme Court justices made this decision. It is what it is, right? And of course, some Republicans are starting to, backpedal, like Susan Collins' hoppy Scotch ass. First of all, I don't believe Senator Susan Collins anymore when she acts like she doesn't know what's going on. She claimed that, receipts prove that Judge Kavanaugh, who was accused of sexual abuse, just a fun fact, right? And Clarence Thomas, who also was accused of sexual harassment of Anita Hill, right? Those two, of course, voted against Roe versus Wade. So you have 5 justices, only one woman, Amy Berry Coleman, Coney Barrett, whatever the fuck her name is. She also supported 4 men and 1 woman, right? The rest of the women on the Supreme Court, Keegan, Sotomayor, did not vote in favor of it. And for those who are looking for future Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown, she doesn't come until later this year, so that's why you didn't see her making a vote yet. But I say all this to say that we're in a very precarious time. We're in a very polarizing time politically. And what's been so upsetting is that you still have people here trying to justify the ineptness of the Democratic Party and also the bullshit of the Conservative Party. There's no benefit to the Roe versus Wade being overturned. There's nothing good about this decision. There's nothing about it special. Folks are like, oh, this might get people to go to the polls in November for the midterms. Sure. Okay, so Democrats are going to go to the polls and be mad. And the fuck what? Like, I'm not saying that I'm not going to vote. I'm going to vote. But because clearly elections have consequences. But what annoys me, though, is that we're at a point where it's like, okay, so we got you in, Biden, and you ain't doing shit. You can't codify this. You're still not, on board with the filibuster. You don't want to expand the Supreme Court, which I understand. I guess I get it because, if everything changes, then the next person might have it. I guess, I suppose, right? But the thing is that you don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything. You're in this space where you're just sitting on your hands waiting. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? And then the crazy part is that all these moderate Democrats are out here sitting up here sending fundraiser emails. I've gotten tons of emails over the past weekend from all these Democrats like, oh, if you give money to the party. I'm like, so you're using this as the opportunity to campaign for fundraising? Like, this is what you're doing? How fucking sick is that? If you don't get your ass out there right now and find some way to maneuver this, there's gotta be a way. And my issue with them is like, even if, can you at least try? Just to be so give up it, just to be so quick to just throw in the towel. I can't. And it's not that Republicans are smarter or more strategic. It's just that they're just doing what their constituents want. They're not special. They're just doing what their voters want. They made these promises for years. They told us for years, like, hey, when we get that Supreme Court, we're gonna repeal this. They've never lied about what they're trying to do. They've never hidden them. They've never hidden the agenda. I don't know what the fuck the Democratic agenda is at this point. I don't know what the actual agenda is. Like, I don't know what Democrats like completely stand for. I know the broad picture, but I don't know specifics anymore. I don't know because I swear that Biden said back in 2019 that he would codify some things. Now we're not hearing that word codify from him. Now we're hearing bullshit. So it's like earlier, before this decision happened, he was basically hinting at people needing to vote harder. I'm sorry, but okay, we vote harder, right? And then what do we get? Because we got to get something. All this symbolic appointments and shit, that's cute, but that's not making any of our lives easier. Like, there are now women in this country, right, that are actually going to be forced to have a pregnancy, or they're going to have to find some other way to do it, right? That's a real issue. And you're not doing anything to address it immediately. Like, that's a real thing. That's not an idea. It's not a symbolic gesture. Like, when people said they wanted women's rights, right? Women's rights are actual things. Like, they're tangible things that make their lives better. I think sometimes people think that, like, Democrats love signal boosting, right? It's all about, on these platitudes, right? Virtue signaling they like to do, where they like to say all the right words, but then they think that because they said the right words, that's a good thing. You got these damn elected officials out here singing, this land is our land, or whatever the fuck they're singing. They're singing that while people are out here protesting. That's your response? And then you got white women out here talking about auntie networks, talking about, to women who want to get abortions, I can provide safe space. First of all, the government is tracking and monitoring everything. So if you have an app that's monitoring your period, I personally would suggest you deactivate it. If you are in communication with people about your health or your reproductive systems on online chats and forums, I would personally shut that down. Like, they're tracking everything now. And then I hear about these companies like Netflix, and Disney, and all these companies that's now going to provide alternative resources for people to have abortions. You better be careful with that, because I feel like also in that regard, companies knowing your personal business, knowing what you're doing, the privacy is gone. Like, all of these elements that would protect you as an individual now is out there in the streets because of how fucked up this policy is. And there's just so many questions I have, right? So what happens in rape situations now? What happens, and what happens when women are in some areas being forced? Like, is the semen now a weapon now? Is the dick now a weapon in situations where a pregnancy could be involved without consent? Like, what is all the other legal implications that can now take place behind this? Because it looks like anyone who would be assisting or a company is not an accomplice to a crime if a woman wants to get an abortion in certain states that are banning it. Like, there's so much extra shit to this that I don't think people are thinking about all the way. And I don't even know if the Supreme Court has thought about it because I'm like, there's going to be more questions, but that was never the plan. They was never thinking about it because the plan was never to think about it. The plan was just to do what they said it was going to do, right? Because the NRA gave them money to make sure the guns were good, the lobbying, the backdoor pedals. I mean, like if you look at Kavanaugh got his country club bill paid off. That was 95,000. Got some 1.2, $1.4 million in mortgage covered by somebody before he ran. Bunch of other stuff got paid off for him a couple of years back. And no one's really taking the time to ask who paid those bills. Because I still want to know who paid those expenses. I got an idea who I think did it or who were some of the people that could have did it. But it's very interesting that some of those expenses in his livelihood got carried out before he became a Supreme Court justice. Interesting. So the sad part is that the Supreme Court used to be like the ideal institution, right? Like the institution that people grew up wanting to be. Like, oh, if you was in law, to be a Supreme Court justice was an honor. Now the court has no respect. The court has like no respect. Shit is leaking in the streets. They're trying to find the person, leak the FBI all up in the shit. Like they really have lost all of their prestige. Like we find out the Supreme Court is just as raggedy as all these other places. We over here thinking that this is a Supreme Court. There's nothing supreme about the court. Well, the supremacy is supreme. The whiteness is supreme on the Supreme Court. That's true. But like other than that, man, there's a lot of things I would like to say, but I can't say on this podcast. That's what I would do when I want to call my friends. And I don't know if I want to even say some of the stuff on the phone because I just have so many thoughts about some of the stuff that's going on. But to the people out there protesting outside these justices' houses, good for practicing your First Amendment right. Because clearly everybody is complaining about everything but the Second Amendment nowadays. Clearly everybody feels like the Second Amendment is under attack. No, the First Amendment's been under attack. And the people that are exercising their First Amendment right to protest in a very civil manner or whatever, kudos to you. There was a protest that was in Philly on Friday when the announcement, I think the day after the announcement came, and people were like, "Oh, Ernest, are you going to the protest?" Y'all, I am protest out. First of all, for me, I feel like they say that a protest is for the unheard. I've been fortunate to be heard. I don't need to go to those protests and take up space anymore from people who don't get a voice, right? I have a platform with thousands upon thousands of followers on my various social media outlets. I don't need to be at a protest that's just a protest. Now, direct actions, please look up the difference between a protest and a direct action. I'll show up to a direct action. For protests and marches, rallies, it's not, I've done so many of those over the years. 2016 wore me out. For me, it's about using my influence to do more with what I have, right? Like if you're an everyday factory worker, teacher, someone who's just out in the streets because this is the only space for you to be able to express your First Amendment right in this type of way, that's for you. Me, I don't have to do that. I mean, there's other things I need to be doing. And I bring this up because I get so annoyed at these protests when I see elected officials. So the protest took place outside of City Hall, but I saw city council members and other elected officials marching with the people outside of City Hall. I'm sorry, but you have an office there. Why are you out here with the people protesting with them when you really need to be taking your ass to your office and find out ways to make people's lives better when it comes to this? Like, I just don't understand, and I get annoyed sometimes when I see that because I'm just kind of like, it's a photo op. It's a fundraising opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to be on a mic so you can get that great photo. You can get some media coverage. And honestly, you shouldn't even be on the mic. Like, this is not about you. The people are frustrated. The people are calling on change. How can you listen to them if you're too busy marching alongside of them? Like, how can you actually process what your role is if you're too busy trying to be somebody else or be like other people? I just don't get why elected officials do it. I get it because it's fundraising, it's very self-promoting, and it's just tacky, and I don't like it. I just don't. I just don't. I think that When you have the power to do more, do that. Don't do what everybody else is doing, because those are the only options. Because if those people had your political power and your abilities, something might be different, right? So that's my take on it. I'm just very tired of seeing that. But I also want to say that a lot of these conversations around birth control and women's right to choose get real tacky real fast. There's some people out here doing the most. I'm hearing that white people are calling Clarence Thomas, a coon and the N word. Let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck how fucked up Clarence Thomas is, but you don't get to call him that if you're not black. It's not your. It's not your place. Stay in your place, white people. Stop overstepping. Okay. Other folks that POC that's not black. Please don't do it. Don't do it. It's not your place. Okay. I don't like, Amy Barrett Coney, or whatever the fuck her name is, but I'm not going to call her certain words that are reserved for women to call her. I'm not going to do that because I need to know my place, right? As a man. Like, it's just certain stuff you just can't say, you can't be doing out here. And some people get a little too comfortable. And some of y'all, they got a little too comfortable around your white friends. It's time to retreat and say, listen, we don't do that. It's never okay to say the N word if you're not black. It's never okay. It's never okay day to say it. I don't even care if it's in a book. Skip it. Skip the word. Okay? I swear, don't try to be Quentin Tarantino and think, it's a movie. I can say what I want to say. Okay. Fuck around and find out. For real. But one of the things that I want to make clear, and I've talked about this on my Instagram, is that looking at these decisions by the courts, it fuels my idea that the conservatives want to push out eugenics, right? They are trying to create and maintain white power. And they've then slipped around and said it. There was a congressperson who was at a Trump rally that slipped up and said white lives instead of for I don't know what the word she was trying to say, but she slipped up and she said it. These people are telling you how they feel in real time. These are not Floridian slips. They're not mistakes. This is how they feel. They want to preserve and protect white lives. And so I was trying to explain this on Instagram, but people were just not, some people weren't getting it. So what I'm saying is that I think that this idea of forcing white women to have babies is their way of trying to maintain the population control. Because if you remember, several podcast episodes ago, I discussed how a lot of these laws coming out and these mad conservatives that was insurrecting the Capitol, that this is all about them maintaining white supremacy and control. And this is how they do so in legislation. Because now that Roe versus Wade is overturned, here's how this works. They want to force white women to have abortion. No, they want to force white women to have babies. According to recent data, I was looking at white women across the country, not in particular areas, but just across the country, have more abortions than every other group. And that makes sense because there are more white women in this country than everyone else. I mean, than black women and Latinx women. So that would make sense. So if they stop, their ability to have abortions, people say, well, poor black women and poor communities typically have more children, yada, yada, yada. Yes, that is true. But hold on, because you got to look at the whole package. If we only focused on just the abortion laws alone, then you might see that this may or may not impact or change the population growth, because, in other words, black and brown women would also be forced to have babies. And so the population would continue to climb for people of color in this country. But that's not the only issue here, right? They're also putting out laws that's protecting state-sanctioned violence, basically. They're allowing police to have more power. They're allowing police to be more above the law, right? We take away Miranda rights and things of that nature. Also increasing gun carrying, right, and access to guns. We know that gun violence disproportionately impacts black and brown people at a higher rate, right? And so if they're allowing more guns to be accessible and permissible in this city, in this country, then they're creating a base where, one, guns will be distributed in ways that will kill more black and brown people. And then when you also factor in the other issues around abortion and things like that, you begin to also see how these issues also perpetuate. You also begin to see situations where people don't factor in um, gun violence, police state sanctioned violence, and how that's going to kill black people at a disproportionate rate, while you see white people, specifically white women and also white men, right, continue to have margins of increase. Because here's the thing: when you're hearing about how gun violence is killing black men at a rapid rate in cities like Philadelphia, when you're hearing about police killings increasing on the rise and how that impacts black men, you're seeing literally a massive amount of death and mortality being caused by the bullet and by law enforcement, which then means that any type of progress that would have been made by black women having more babies because Roe versus Wade was overturned, that progress gets ate up by the bullets and by law enforcement. White women, on the other hand, their white sons, right, and daughters don't face that same level of harm. So those numbers are going to keep staying, right? They're going to keep increasing. They already have a lead, but that lead continues. They're thinking of the long end game. The long end game is to find as many ways as possible to make us more extinct, to make us smaller, to reduce our number. And it's a numbers game. So it requires a full-fledged political endeavor, not just one. So when people were saying things like, I don't understand this whole replacement theory idea around populations because, black women are having babies too. It's like, yeah, I could give you just focus on the abortion aspect. But if you're looking at all the other laws that are also happening and all the other powers that be, then you'll see in totality that there's going to be no progress for diverse increased numbers. And they're making it very clear, right? Because everything else is set up, right? When you look at the way that money is happening, poverty, the reduction of support in urban communities, the increase of policing to create a police state, it's very clear what's happening here. And so I just need the legislators in office, the Bidens and everyone else who act like they're so against white supremacy and want to fight back against this type of fascism, wake the fuck up. So, I mean, that's just as clear as day. Wake the fuck up. So, in other news, one of the songs that I've been listening to this week that I feel like came right on time was Beyonce's new single, "Break My Soul." It's perfect. It's a perfect dance song. It's a perfect release. It just came at the right time. Listening to it after everything that's been going on this whole week, it just feels like a summer anthem. It just feels current. It just speaks to a lot of the issues going on. And what's interesting is that some people, of course, have to try to ruin things. I think what people have to understand is that sometimes I think people take Beyonce too seriously. I'm not saying don't take Beyonce's impact in music seriously. Yes, take her seriously. She is literally the most influential, one of them. Well, I would say the most influential living artist of our time right now, musically. I think so. Yeah, I don't see anyone else that has that kind of, like, she has a social political vibe going. She has the actual business acumen, the artistic, cultural aspect. I mean, she hits on so many segments of life that I would say she probably is. Yeah, for sure. And I think that, because of that, sometimes think people just sometimes don't get when she just wants to have fun, that she just wants to sometimes do something with the least amount of weight sometimes. And I think this song was that, right? It carries meaning to the rest of us, but intentions on her end isn't as extreme as I think some people may be projecting. So I hear stuff like, oh, Beyonce wants you to quit your job. I mean, shut up. She doesn't want you to quit your job. It's a song, it's a message, it's an idea, it's a concept, it's a thought, it's a feeling. Like, like songs, people take songs so damn literally, right? And I think that that's the problem with some of this stuff is that people just, I don't know. Part of me doesn't believe that these people are serious. I just think that they like to jump on trend because somehow every time Beyonce drops something, then all the world's ills and problems with the world then falls on her shoulders and her songs. And while I'm an equal opportunity offender, like if she did something problematic in her songs, I mean, by all means, it's something to be said. Like when like the stuff that Kendrick was doing. But it's funny because like Kendrick Lamar, right, demands and begs for people to really understand his music, right? And or overstand his music, whatever, right? Like he wants that kind of attention. And he gets some of it, right? But what's funny is that Beyonce will always get it more than him, even when she's doing the simplest shit because of just her impact. Like Kendrick's begging for it, and when people actually look at some of the stuff he's saying, criticize it, we're told "Shut Up" is just a song, but like Beyonce's literally just giving us a song to bop to, and yet people really want to overanalyze and over politicize it, and it's just like, oh my god, come on. So I don't know. I just think that they do it for the algorithm. I think they do it for the clicks and the reads and the views. Been there, done that many years ago. Trust me, I know. But like, y'all not getting paid. And some of this is just such a reach, and some people I've just I would say lost complete respect over, but some people I've had to look at like, yeah, you're doing too much. Not at this age. I mean, there's a lot of young people that's trying to figure themselves out, and I get it, right? The young folks in college that they're reading, pedagogy of the oppressed for the first time, so everything to them is oppression. Listen, been there, done that. We all college folks have done it. Everything is, but like I got a little bit of grace. See, that's the grace you don't give the grace to kind. Give it to college students who are trying to figure their way. Like I think I get 22-year olds, 21-year olds, folks that go to college who might be reading about feminism, reading about racial oppression, and so they're reading all this stuff and they're thinking critically and maybe a little too critically, but that's because the material is very fresh to them. So they're being hypercritical. I remember that's how I was when I was in college. Like I learned so much about culture and media and things, and it was enriching, it was enlightening. But I think looking back in retrospect, like okay, 12, 10 years ago, I probably overanalyzed and politicized almost like everything around me. But that was okay because everything is technically political, but let's not go there today. But like I probably looked at some stuff and was like, oh my God. And in retrospect, it may have not been that deep. But you know what? I'm not judging myself because I was young and I was learning. What I don't get is people who don't read the books, who don't really actually read, who don't really know what the fuck they're talking about, but are jumping on trends they're seeing online, using words out of context, misappropriating black academic vernacular, and is completely just jumping into the chat without no context clues whatsoever. Those people I can't stand. And we see a lot of that on Twitter. We see a lot on social media where you got folks that read a think piece or an article and said, oh, okay, now I'm an expert at this and I can just say whatever and label everything this way. And so I hear people do that a lot. Like I've been seeing people use the word gatekeeping. I'm like, you're not using it correctly, you dumb fuck. Like this is not the way you use gatekeeping. But they'll just, use it to their advantage. Everything is gaslighting, right? Everything is love bombing. Everything is narcissistic. Like some of this stuff, I'm like, nah. Like, no, y'all. These are real clinical terms. Some of these words are clinical terms. Like, you just can't be throwing them out everywhere. But I get it. You learned a new word. You saw a cool documentary, a cool story, and now you want to, make it your entire vernacular. We got to do better with that. But that's what happens, right? That's what happens with Beyonce. Beyonce is one of those people who can bring that out of folks. And the sad part is that it's bad because a lot of people have not really taken enough time to really wrestle and understand Beyonce's discography. It has definitely evolved. And as society evolves, we have evolved with it. So we see it differently. A question that was brought up over the weekend was, what album was when Beyonce became Beyonce? And I tell people it's very hard, right? I personally think it's when B-Day came out. For me, I think Black America, I think B-Day was the album that solidified Beyonce to us because a lot of the mannerisms,
the stylings and the energy that she had in that album defined and identified Beyonce as we knew it. But if you want to know when Beyonce became Beyonce to white people, I would say the Mrs. Carter tour and driven by Beyonce self-titled that came. That to me was when she became Beyonce to white people. Because what's funny is that in that album, Beyonce has to spell out her identities, right? Like she has to say the word feminist, and well, she says feminist in one of her songs, right? And she's sexual. And I remember how all these white women were like, "Oh my God, Beyonce's a feminist, and Beyonce is so sexual in this album and provocative." And I'm looking like, Beyonce's entire history of music has always been driven by female empowerment anthems and feminist ideals before she was saying the words. I mean, it was feminism. Independent women, bills, all those songs, a lot of her aspects were, but it was under a black feminist reworking that I think a lot of white women just did not understand. And so they just didn't call it feminism because it wasn't their feminism, right? Because white feminism is something completely different. Um, so that was one thing. But then also, Beyonce has always been sexual. She's always been sexual. I was listening to Soldier the other day, the Destiny's Child song Soldier, and if you listen to what they're saying on that song, there's nothing about that whole vibe that is that catered to you. I get Destiny Unfulfilled isn't on white people's playlist, but like, I mean, B Day, like, I mean, did we not listen to B Day? I mean, Naughty Girl was sexual. I mean, did y'all not? I mean, I get a Kitty Cat and Sugar Mama and Green Light. What do you think the green light was for? But anywho, again, people not realizing this, so they finally find out she's sexual with Partition, and I'm just like, or Drunk in Love and all that. I'm like, no, Beyonce been had a Partition, baby. I love Partition. I think it's a great song, and I love the music video. But she's been doing this. What are y'all talking about? I don't know. But again, this is white people. So, I'm not surprised that Break My Soul, the smash hit that's already debuting in the top 20 on billboards in its first 3 days of being tracked, which I think it has the potential to be her next number one hit. This will be her first solo number one hit in over 10 years. Her last solo number one hit was Single Ladies. It's about damn time. And I'm happy that she's doing it without Jay-Z on the song. I know that's her husband. She's going to probably stay with him forever. But, like, I'm happy that she didn't go to her usual bag of tricks, which often includes a feature with her husband, um, some other artist, emerging artist that she likes. Like, I'm happy that she's just like giving the fans solo Beyonce, giving us dance Beyonce, and giving it to us at a time when we needed it the most. And Big Frida keeps getting these checks. There was a great article I read many years ago called "The Ghost of Big Frida," which is about how Big Frida is never visible in any of the straight artists that mainstream artists she's a part of. So like with Drake, right? She was a big deal with Drake. She did Formation. This is like what 2016 was Formation. Then shortly after was Scorpion, I think in 2017. And they were just talking about how like Big Frida wasn't in any of the videos or really on the tour or the concerts, but like her voice was there. And I like that Big Frida is now becoming more visible now. Like, I mean, the reality show that she did, and then she's going making this appearance of BT. I mean, she's doing a lot of different stuff now. I like that there's a face for everybody to see. And I'm happy that bounce music hasn't died and that it's incorporated in this music. And I'm just happy that she's getting her roses while she lives, because a lot of black queer artists don't. Which brings me to another part of this conversation. But yeah, I like the song. I think the song is going to do well. A lot of conversations, Cardi B's dropping new music. I mean, 1st of July, she coming in with a new single. A lot of people just dropping music. Lil Nas X just dropped a single earlier this week. It was okay. Video was interesting. Who else dropped a song? I mean, Drake's got the album out, the new album out that people are still talking about, house music and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm house. Shut up. Yes, Robin S. is definitely an influence of Beyonce, but no one thinks Beyonce invented house music. And if you do think Beyonce invented house music, I don't know what to tell you. But Iggy Azalea, no, not Iggy Azalea, wrong person. Azalea Banks, girl, shut up. Like, I'm just, I'm not even going to repeat any of the things that she's been saying, but she's just, she's so insufferable. And there's times where I've tried to like have grace, but she's just so unbearable. Like she's just so insufferable. She's been done wrong by a lot of people. I'll give her that. But she is just downright nasty, just mean. Just, I don't want to say bitter, but it's giving. Like now, every time she's attached to something, her name's attached to something, it's always something about someone else and it's super negative and it's just unnecessary. Like, it's very unnecessary and just begging for attention and help. And she makes great music. And we'll never forget the music, the great music she's made. But she's at this point now, she's just become a troll. I mean, she's been a troll for a minute now, to be real. But, like, this is too much. Too much. Two wrongs to make a right, girl. But, like, ugh. So, we have her. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think she's, I think Beyonce, I don't think Beyonce's whole album's going to be a house music album like Drake's. I think it's just going to, I just think this is just a single she wanted to do. There's a part of me that feels like she's going to have like a gumbo of different music genres and that she's going to do what she did with Lemonade and try to get these songs in different Grammy categories. So like Don't Lose Yourself was nominated for rock. She had a song in R&B. I think she had a pop nomination. But like I know she wanted to get a country song in the country category, but the country genre did not let that happen. But I think she wanted to follow the same trajectory that Janet Jackson had, where Janet was the first black woman to win a rock Grammy for Black Cat. And I think she got on the rock charts for Black Cat. I can't remember which one, but she, Rhythm Nation was an important album in music, still is. It's breathtaking, it's iconic. But, I mean, Beyonce, I think, might be trying to do that, where I feel like this album is going to be a very cohesive album. It's going to be like a gumbo of different genres and styles. So she can just, that's why I think the word Renaissance is there. Like, I think, like, that's what it means. Like, she's going to show her strong versatility in various music genres. And it's going to be a very cohesive, fun album as a result. That's what I think the album's going to be. I could be wrong, but that's my prediction. I don't think it's going to be just straight up dance music. I think there's going to be good vibes, but I also think that she's going to be dibbling and dabbling. Like, I know there's a part of her that wants to rap. She's probably going to have a rap song on there. I'm telling you, y'all, she's won a rap Grammy. She's won, best rap song with Savage, best rap performance or whatever she had with Meg Thee Stallion. Like, Beyonce is trying to be a genre. She is a genre bending artist, but I think she's really going to take it to the next level this time around. I think she's going to get out her bag. That's my prediction. And I think that a lot of artists are making way for her. I hear that Lizzo is dropping her new album very soon, early July. Beyonce's album's coming out July 29th. Yes, I bought the vinyl for research purposes. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see. Lizzo's got an album coming out. I mean, Cardi B. I mean, I don't think a lot of these other artists are coming out during the eligibility period for the Grammys because I'm all about award shows and stuff. Um, I think that because I think at the end of September that's the cutoff for anyone who wants to be considered for the 2023 the 2023 Grammys, which will be next year. The cutoff date for consideration is going to be the end of September. So the album of the year competition I see, and I think I said this earlier, I definitely see Silk Sonic. They just won album of the year at the BET Awards, which is already a forecast that shit is about to go down again. They're gunning for that Grammy. They don't give a fuck about Beyonce. They want a Grammy for album of the year. So Silk Sonic is also going for that. I think I can see Harry Styles, Harry's House being nominated for album of the year. I can also see Kendrick Lamar's album being nominated. Who else? Bad Bunny, of course. Adele. But I people are like, oh God, here come Adele. There's a part of me that might feel like, if Beyonce really does a really strong rollout, what she's been doing thus far for her album, I can see Adele not necessarily doing as great as she done in the past. This could be the year. Plus, the Grammys have done different stuff with the categories. Plus, I think that people really want Beyonce to win, maybe. I don't know. Three could be a charm for. This would be the third. Oh, this would be the fourth. This would be the fourth album that Beyonce be nominated for album in a year. Because the first was I Am Sasha Fierce, the second was Beyonce self-titled, the third was Lemonade, and this would be the fourth. So I mean, it's time, Academy. It's time. The Recording Academy must give it to her this time. But I digress. I think Cardi's going to drop afterwards because I don't think Cardi wants to get caught up in this Kendrick wave because I think Kendrick's going to get all the Grammy categories for the most part. So I don't think she want to get swept up in that. And also, too, it's like, we've given you some time. We'll wait a little longer. So after the eligibility period, so then at that point, what Cardi can do is then just have a really great era. And Cardi's good at giving us eras. Like Cardi can stretch an album because she really did stretch Invasion of Privacy. And I feel like if this album has a lot of hits, Cardi can definitely stretch it out by the time we get to Grammy period next cycle. But I fear that could be the same issue that happened with WAP, where WAP didn't get nominated because so much other music came out. So she's rolling the dice. But I don't know. Music has been dry lately. I've not been that impressed. I'm happy Beyonce's back because it's been a real dry period. It's so dry that albums from last year are still like charting high on the current Billboard a year later. Just some food for thought. So this brings me to the BET Awards. I watched them, you all. I watched it. I wasn't a fan. I really wasn't. I just did not like it. I didn't. I think it was like a 5 to 10. A couple of my friends were watching it with me. I was live tweeting it. I wasn't a fan. I just felt like it was underwhelming. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm getting older. I don't know. But like, I remember when I was younger and watching the BET Awards was like an event. Like it was like going, like your parents, everybody, your whole family would watch. Like you didn't know, it was like merging the old school with the new school, and your parents. I learned about a lot of black musicians, or got to see them in their before they passed. Some of them like James Brown and Michael Jackson, and a couple Prince. I got to see these people, and it's weird because they're not doing that anymore like they used to. Like I remember when they would have these artists that were from back in the day and they would still cut up and kill it. And then they would have the new artists, right? The hottest artists that was out, right? Like Nelly, Beyonce. Oh my goodness. Everybody was out. The BET Awards was a must-see event. But as it begins to progress over the years, it's lost its luster. Like I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I don't see any like Lizzo opened up, and that was pretty damn good. But like everybody else, like where was the people? Where was Kendrick Lamar? I'm not a Chris Brown fan, but I mean Chris Brown and BET go way back. He's the second most honored winner, right? Chris Brown just dropped a new album. I didn't listen to it, but like he wasn't even there. Where was? I mean, who else is out? Drake? I mean, Drake don't even come to BET Awards. Like, he's not out. I knew Beyonce was far gone. But like, where are these artists that were like these big stars? Like The Weeknd wasn't there. Like Doja Cat was nominated, had the most nominations, and she wasn't even there. Like, where are these stars? Like, they're not there. It's baffling to me. And you have these performances. Like they had Jack Harlow perform, and I'm not crazy about Jack Harlow. I'm not impressed. I just find him to be just utterly annoying. But Brandy came out with him, and I was just like, I understood what they were doing because he sampled her, but didn't even know who she was or whatever. It was very shady how he did it. It was just very problematic. And then he brings Brandy out, and it's just like it's sad that Brandy had to come. I just think he's a culture vulture at this point. I get that other folks like him, I get it, but like I'm not crazy about him. Um Lotto performed, and she performed her hit Big Energy, which is a bop, and it samples fantasy, and it had Mariah Carey came out being escorted, to the stage. And what was interesting was she had her own lighting and her own diva background. I mean, she was fun. It was cute. And then there was Ella May with Babyface, and that was cool, I guess. Giveon, what was going on with that mic? He says the mic, but I'm like, I mean, I was falling for that, but I've always felt like his vocals were weird. But some of my friends like him. He's cute, but I was just kind of like, I don't know about these vocals tonight. He was blaming the mic, but I was like, the mic is on. We can hear you. You're just not sounding good. But live and love. I would have given my best vocals to BT either. Um, so the award, first of all, the awards are weird. I mean, the awards themselves, they really was did it was just a lot of awkward winners and folks. I mean, I was happy for Tim's from Nigeria. She's awesome. But it just the award aspect of the show just seemed like weird. Like Mary J. Blige won, the BT Her Award, which is cool. But what was weird to me was she was reading off a teleprompter. So I was like, so you knew you was gonna win? Was that the deal? Was that like you had to get up on stage and win something in order to come for Diddy? So let's get into this Diddy performance because that's really, I mean, before I get into this other issue that I had with the show that was technical. But like the issue I had with the Diddy performance, first of all, they could have used another rehearsal. It was obvious that this was slapped together. And I just was like, come on. This hype around Kim Porter and Diddy, that relationship was a mess. People followed it. He was not the best to her. And he used a song to perform to her, which was whatever. But he gets up there, he thanks Cassie, but he doesn't thank the city girl he's dating. I think Carisha, whatever her name is, that was up there with a sign saying Big Pappy or Go Poppy or whatever. And I'm just like, ooh, this is cringy. I mean, I guess she's having fun, but like, it was just weird. Lil' Kim performed. She made a cameo appearance. It wasn't as good as the 2015 performance. And that was my issue. My issue was that in 2015, Bad Boy had came out and did like a reunion or a special, commemorative event. I don't know if it was the 25th anniversary, the 20th anniversary, but it was something for Bad Boy. But like this was like 7 years ago, and they all came on stage and everybody came and performed. So I was kind of taken aback, like why they did that again, because that's pretty much what they did. But it was like sloppier. Like Faith Evans was singing. They had Shine. They had Jodeci. You could tell that there was a lot of people that were not there. Okay, that still don't fuck with Diddy, and it was just a lot. It was a lot going on. So then, if you thought things couldn't get wilder, Kanye West comes face all the way, covered with glasses, just doing what he do best, attention seeking, being awkward, just doing the fucking most. Speech was weird. I didn't even pay it too much mind. So he was there. Then Diddy thanks Cassie, which is his ex-girlfriend, who left him and got married, and she's living a happier life. But it's like there's some beef between them because I think her husband threw some shots at Diddy about coming out the closet, and I was like, oh my god, yikes. But there was just so much going on between them. I was just like, so you thank her, you thank Kim Porter, you don't thank your new girlfriend, which is telling. Don't even thank his sons. He didn't acknowledge his sons. I don't know. He did the whole, if I don't name you, I'm thanking you. And I'm just like, okay, that's tacky. So there's just a lot of just cringiness with that. Then BT called themselves, I guess, trying to redeem themselves by having Billy Porter do this like random short Vogue like ballroom thing, which they did include real ballroom stars, like, from Prodigy to others. So that was, I guess, the authenticity was there. But my issue was that it sounded rushed. It looked rushed. I was like, why wouldn't you just have Billy Porter sing one of his songs that he just released called, I think, The Children or whatever? Like, why not have him perform a song? It was giving very much like, look what we did. Look at you. Look, we vogued on the stage. Take that, you homosexuals. I feel like it was just so much pandering. And I love Billy Porter, right? But my issue with Billy Porter is, it's like, dude, love you down. But don't you feel like you're being tokenized now at this point? Like, it just feels like all of the straights are like, if there's they want to find their token, queer black person they can put up, that's going to be the person they're going to use to like
I guess they think, quell down whatever concerns. I'm not dumb. I know how this works. People try to do it to me. Like, there's always somebody in every community that people will take and tokenize as their person. So I remember Amber Heights in Philadelphia was like that token black queer person that they used against the community. Like, oh, well, we know a bunch of black people don't like us, but we're going to align ourselves with this one who's going to say everything we want to say or make us feel good. So we'll just rock with them. I feel like that's what they do with Billy Porter. And I'm just like, hope Billy Porter recognizes that and don't repeat the mistake. Because that's kind of what happened with Ellen DeGeneres, where they was having Ellen DeGeneres have homophobes like Kevin Hart come on her show, and she'll redeem them. And that was supposed to be like, though, she's redeeming them on behalf of the community. Girl, you don't speak for the rest of us. And that's why your show got canceled. But like, I just don't want that to happen to Billy Porter, where he becomes that token black queer person in pop culture, where every time, like RuPaul, like they'll switch them up, and it's just, I hate that. That's just an observation on my end. I mean, there's people like that in every community, but that's just it's just such an irk. Um, so outside of that, I cannot continue to talk. I just cannot with how annoyed I was that in their immemorial they acknowledged Kevin Samuels, which was a lot. In their immemorial, they put Roe versus Wade, which was just like tacky and not funny. And then they did this whole gun. They did this tribute to people who died of gun violence, but they're gonna actually do gunshots at the damn thing. Like, they actually had gunfire, guns ablazing during this entire ordeal. And I'm just like, how fucked up and traumatic that is for people watching, for you to do a tribute to a gunshot, and then you're actually showing the gunfire. I mean, you're like shooting, you're like actually gonna do gunshots in that place. Like, do you understand the after effect of what that felt like? That was just so, like, it's just no fucking care and concern in the world. So yeah, I mean, overall, I was not a fan. It was, first of all, it was 4 hours long. It went from like, I think it was from like 8 to 12 to like midnight. It carried on for like hours upon hours. And then I was like, for what? There was like, it wasn't even anything major. Like, who won video of the year? They used to announce that. They announced album of the year, which is weird because they used to never do album of the year. But like, it was just a lot. Like, where's the Viewers' Choice Awards? Like, where was the Viewers' Choice Awards? Because I remember those days when Chris Brown and B2K and them used to win. So that was weird. But then the other thing that also stuck to me too, and this is something I was talking about on Twitter, I hate how much fucking corporate sponsorship logos is just plastered. The so-and-so award presented by Beats, but presented by Smirnoff, presented by Sprite. Like, god damn it. First of all, I was always trying to figure out, like, I know that like MTV has done that with like Pepsi or something like that. Like, they've done some of that, but like, it's never as gross and over the top as BT. And I kept trying to figure out why that was the case. And I found my answer. Basically, I feel like at least what I know is that they used these corporations use the BT Awards as a way to quote unquote hit the target demographic and to promote to black people. And so it's their way to say, look, we love you black folks. We're sponsoring this, we're sponsoring that. But my whole issue is none of that is going to go back into the actual black community. Like, all these corny scholarships and promotions, some of these corporations are $1 billion corporations, and they talk about some little $25,000 grant or something they gave to somebody. That is not corporate responsibility. Tacky. Don't like it. I say this every year. It gets worse the older I get because I see it and I observe it more. And speaking of tacky, sidebar, there was all this talk about HBCUs, which is another conversation for another day. But at the end of Diddy's acceptance speech, he announced he was going to give $1 million to Howard University, which, I mean, where the money going? Because there's people out there in mold infested dorm rooms and bad student housing conditions over there. Like, if you just give it to Howard University, from what I heard from the folks over there, because I'm in the HBCU network, I'm a professor at the first HBCU, which is Cheney University. I hear from people in and out that Cheney got some issues with housing, and that when they get money, a lot of times some of this money goes to the execs and the big wigs, and they get raises and boosts. Meanwhile, a lot of students over there suffering. So, like, if you're gonna give that money, give it to the housing, Diddy.
And also too, like all this money, you gonna get some money to Deion Sanders with his football team, whatever, and a million to that. Okay, cool, whatever. But like, have you ever thought to yourself like that you should give this money to those artists that had those bad contracts that you didn't free them from? Some of these people are arguing for money that they have not gotten. I would make it rain there first. I mean, could you imagine if you like gave 10 of those artists that you fucked over $100,000 a piece? That's like equals a million. What impact that would bring for their life and their circumstances? Because some of these people, like Rob Black and others, have died, and it's like poor, and it's like, what the fuck? So, not a fan. Not a fan. I'm just very disappointed by that. But that's capitalism for you. So, BT Awards was just meh, meh. But what was not meh, but was very interesting, was Versus this week. I haven't watched Versus in like months. I would say over a year. Because they was making some bad decisions, having some very problematic people, trying to resurrect problematic people. It was not good. But I watched Versus recently to see this competition between Omarion versus Mario, which was fascinating because they also had like these small mini teams go against each other, like Sammy and Bobby Valentino versus Pleasure P and Ray J. It was fun. Now, before the show began, Ray J was trying to sing One Wish. He could not keep those notes. He could not keep those vocals. I don't even know why Ray J keeps trying to sing. I don't even know why he feels like he needs to. Ray J, just sell your glasses and your products and be great. No need to try to do music again. It's okay, okay? It was a moment. It was a moment in time. It's all right. Just be an entrepreneur. And I see he's back with Princess Love, which is like his wife, but like they go on again, off again. He's literally have done entire storylines and shows, multiple shows, talking about trying to repair his marriage or he might divorce or whatever. And yet they were at the BET Awards together side by side. So I'm like, is this a stunt? And like, if it is, why do people think it's cute to like create fake relationship problems in their life before they end up having real ones, but do that for views and money? It's just not cute. But anywho, he was in his feelings. But the main thing was between Omarion and Mario. Let me just make this short on this point. Mario blew Omarion the fuck out. Mario does not have as many hits as Omarion. But this is why I tell people that Versus is interesting, because it's like, is it about the hits or the talent? Because and what I'm learning more and more is that even though some of these artists might have more hits, the person they're going against has the range, the vocals, the talent, the expertise. They have the real clout, the real value. And so when I see some of these artists, doing the whole hit for hits, it becomes questionable. But for me, this situation between Omarion and Mario is a case study within itself, because Mario, I mean, I don't recall him having that many hits, but like he sung a lot of songs that I remember listening to growing up. And I think because he sung them so well and so familiar, it was like, wow, I do remember that. Because let me tell you something, ever since his performance of Versus, I have been listening to Crying Out for Me, like nonstop. Y'all know that I can hear your heart crying. I'm sounding like Omarion did. He sounded this bad, but crying out for me. And if you just say, coming in, coming in, coming in, and say. Listen, I can't sing, but I enjoy the song. And when I have my headphones on, I'm blasting it. I feel like I'm on note with him. But I love that song. It's so cute. And his other songs, I mean, You Should Let Me Love You. I mean, Music for Love. I mean, it's a lot of other great songs. Mario is very talented. But Omarion, I don't know what you were doing. First of all, the fact that I know more hits than Omarion tends to remember. Did he do Supposed to Be? I can't remember what he did. Did he even do O? Like, I don't remember what he was doing, but I just knew Omarion was going to steal the show, and he didn't. He was trying to break dance. I mean, which is another story. Then he brought all these other stunts. He had Tank come out. He had Jeremiah, and all of the Avengers in olden R&B era. But yet and still, Marion slayed him, and it was clearly tense between those two. I mean, they were exchanging barbs, and it looked very personal. But Omarion just was doing the most and was so sensitive, and yet his vocals were horrible. And I wish he just would have admitted that. I mean, he's talking about some sound check, mic check. Listen, he was giving the perfect alibi for Giveon. Like, all of this music stuff, all this stuff with vocals, all these stunts, we don't need it. Send it the fuck back. We don't need it. Send it the fuck back. What we really want, like what we really, really, really want, is to get an artist that can keep up. Or if you can't, just say you can't. But I think Omarion thought that his hits were going to be able to do whatever. But Mario took over the crowd. Mario was winning people over. Mario just slayed. It was just like, oh my goodness, I got it. I was just wow, and he still looks good. Mario looks good too. Can't take that from him. But they both looked good, and they both. I mean, but they both were not delivering the same sound. So some of the shady things Omarion did in his pursuit to say he was unbothered. He's got a book coming out called Unbothered, but the irony is he's so fucking bothered. Um, but he was referring to B2K as his background singers or background dancers. I mean, he was throwing shots and being very condescending. It was very disappointing to see him act like this. Because Omarion's often played it image-wise as the easygoing, unbothered, cool as a cucumber dude. But that man is a hot-ass, salty-ass pickle. He is not cool as a cucumber. He is a salty-ass pickle. And I was not here for it. I was like, really? So, long story short, after that performance, he got dragged on social media, as he should. I mean, he did something. First of all, him and his brother, I forget the brother's name, Omari, or whatever his name is. He's also cute. They went down and ate watermelon on stage. I don't know why they did that. I still don't know why they did that. I don't know what he was on. These artists got to do a better job covering whatever they got going on. Because you on stage eating a watermelon and then you trying to pass it to the fans during the pandemic? Are you... People are nuts out here. People are wilding all the way. I'm not here for it. So he does that. And again, performances was just flat. So J Boog felt some type of way about Omarion throwing these shots, talking about background dances and throwing jarbs, because they were saying that he got served. Razby, J Boog, and Lil Fizz combined and became the three members that threw shots during the performance. So Omarion threw some shots, J Boog threw some shots, but J Boog came with the receipts. So he put this long post that basically said that Omarion was not singing lead vocals on the second album. He carried the torch. He carried the lead. The group apparently, they couldn't even get record deals because the studio execs or whatever did not want to get Omarion because he was vocally weak, to the point where they almost was going to add another person to the group that had better vocals so they can get through, because they almost could have lost their entire contract and been dropped by the label because they couldn't get signed to something. So it was getting real fast. But by the grace of God, things worked out. Omarion was able to, they was able to pull it off and pull it off. Apparently, the group broke up over a girl. There was some rule they had because they were teens. They was not supposed to be fornicating with girls and things on the bus and things of that nature. And I guess they confided as a group, and Omarion backstabbed them, allegedly, to pursue his career. In addition to the other mess that was going on, they said that Omarion was barely in the studio, allegedly. These are all allegations, but I believe them because J Bug was a part of the group. He would know. He said during the first album that Omarion, barely was in the studio, and that they had another artist sing those vocal tracks for those songs. And I was like, whoa. So I had to do my research, because I was like, well, who is this background singer? What is this man about? What is this tea? Because I need to understand what I was hearing, because I was just like, wow, is this really happening? But I was doing my research. So if you look at the credits on these songs, Omarion isn't really doing much of the lead vocals on the second album, Pandemonium. Now, if you want to know what else is going on, the guy who was singing Omarion's vocals, his name is Steve Russell. Now, Steve Russell, you may have never heard of him, was a part of a group called Troop. And Steve Russell can sing well. If you listen to Steve Russell's vocals, it sounds like what we thought Omarion was sounding like. And there is a song that Troop has called Gots to Be. And the funny thing is, B2K has a song called Gots to Be. That was a cover of a song by the group Troop. And Steve Russell was singing vocals and filling in those gaps for Omarion. Go listen to it yourself. Compare and contrast the songs, look at the vocals. But J Boog came ready to slay. Apparently, Omarion was just the face. Omarion, he said all kinds of, he said that Bow Wow stole your tour, Chris Brown stole your career. Yikes. And you know what's funny? It made me go back and say, let me go back and listen to Omarion's solo efforts because maybe there's something going on here. Well, when I look at those videos, I listen to the I listen to some of the videos, Entourage, all these videos. Omarion was doing more dancing than singing, y'all. And the singing and the vocals on his solo songs weren't that really good. Like when you go back and listen to O does not sound like anything too much. He's really just crooning on it. Icebox and all that. And you know, if you actually listen to those videos, like actually watch those music videos he just does a lot of pop locking. Like that's all he was doing, but we just thought that was so cute back in the day. Jay Boog brought up a good point that it was him and Fizz that was the most popular members of the boy band. That is also true. I remember when B2K came out, everybody was not really like obsessed with Omarion. Like no one was like, oh my god, Omarion's so sexy. They really was into Lil Fizz or J Boog. You have to pick your poison. My poison was J Boog. I just thought he was the cutest boy in the group. And people thought Lil Fizz was cute. I mean, he's cute. He was cute. He got the hair, you know, whatever. But I was really into J Boog. And Raspy had his moments. Those lips still had his moments. But Omarion, he was all right. Not like, you know, all right. Now, my friend Amanda was saying that he grew into his looks through time. I agree with that. I think Omarion's sex appeal definitely did grow. Like, if you look at he was definitely trying. But he had the nappy-ass braids, and he was doing all that pop locking, and it was just sloppy. I don't know. He just never gave me the real clean, polished look. He just always seemed like he was doing the most. And when you look at his whole look, he was trying to be Usher. Because I went back and looked at the Usher Confessions video, and it was obvious that all of them boys were trying to be Usher back then. Because Usher's Confessions was magnificent. And they were out during that time. They were younger than Usher, but Usher was at his prime, like, you know, like some other artists. Like, Usher was up there. And so, I'm just sitting here looking like, I don't see it. Like, I realized that really, Omarion was a gimmick. Like, he really was a gimmick. Like, executives and people, he was definitely an industry plant. Like it was obvious he did not have that level of talent. I'm not saying he wasn't talented, but he didn't have that level of talent. He didn't really be that solo, and it makes sense why. Like, he's better when he's in the group than him trying to do this solo thing. Because apparently, when he went solo with Bow Wow, he X'd out B2K. He ended up getting pushed out eventually. He faded off. And it's just very much telling. And like I said, you go back and look at the music videos. And one of the things I saw that was also interesting about Omarion's videos is that every video, it was always a racially ambiguous woman who was like his love interest. Like it was always someone who was like Latinx, or you couldn't tell what their racial identity or their ethnicity was. But it was like always someone lighter. It was always like that spin. The woman would always have like some type of long, curly, or wavy hair. It was very typecasty. And I just noticed that. And I was just like, oh gosh. Like there are some things that I like about the old days of music, and there's just some stuff that's just like trends and music video trends and video vixens. Some of that stuff I'm just like, oh my god, this was terrible. The music was better though. But the marketing and aesthetics were terrible. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see it for Omarion as much. And it also brought me up to my next point, these conversations about verses in general, like how everyone keeps talking about Chris Brown and Usher. And I'm so sick of this conversation. I mean, Usher talking about they're both Chris Brown said that him and Usher are both pioneers. Chris Brown, what have you pioneered musically? Like, what have you done for the genre that was pioneering? I mean, I guess the pioneering thing you've done has been that you have found a way to remake the same song with a different lyrical balance and recycle the same types of songs and convince your fans that they're new hits every time. Maybe that's a pioneering thing. But I don't see the pioneer. I don't see the pioneer. I'm just sitting here looking like I don't see it. Talented, he can dance, I'll give him that. But like, I mean, I'm sick of this Usher conversation. Part of me just wants him to get it over with so we can see it, because I'm just sitting here looking like, oh my god, your hits are not, they don't stick. Like Usher's hits stick like grits. His discography and his songs aged well. And we're not just talking about Confessions. A701 snapped. My Way snapped. I mean, even, Here I Stand snapped. And even a couple of other songs off of the other albums that came out later, like Raymond versus Raymond, still snapped. So I don't really know. I mean, Usher has more number ones than Chris Brown. I mean, like, what are we talking about? Solo number ones, okay? Because Chris Brown's the king of features. Usher ain't on that many songs with a bunch of people. He didn't have that many people on his songs. And when he did, they were legendary, right? Like, Yeah was legendary. But people want to make a fool of themselves in 2022. So, we'll see. As far as TV goes, I've been watching P-Valley. If you have not watched P-Valley on Stars, please watch it. So good. So good. I don't like to tell shows. This is the second season. But Little Murder, that's all I'm going to say. Interesting. Interesting episode. I've been watching Baddie South. It's new. It's on Zeus. I still have not canceled my Zeus subscription. I kind of like Zeus. It's giving. But Baddie South, man, listen, it's not good TV. Let me just be clear. It's not quality TV. But it's giving. Want y'all to know this week concludes the Emmy voting nominations period. So, as a member of the board of governors for the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Mid-Atlantic chapter, I'm super excited to be judging categories and all that good stuff. But I am excited. I'm rooting for my girl, Cornetta Brunson, for Abbott Elementary. I really, really, really hope that she wins, gets nominated. I mean, I just think the show was great. I hope that people really do go and nominate that show. The second season comes out Wednesday, September 21st. I already have my DVR set. I already have my calendar set. Wednesday, September 21st is the second season of Abbott Elementary. I'm processing the fact that the first season just ended earlier. But like my show, my fourth season will be in 2 weeks. The finale is going to be next week. That's going to be the season 2 finale because we'll be at episode 25. And then the new premiere, I'm going to take a break, go on vacation, go to my New York trip, and I'm going to come back. And then the second season will drop then. So, yeah, I'm going to take a break for 1 week. Not this upcoming week, the finale's next week. And then I'm going to take a break, and then season 3 premieres. Yep, that's how I'm going to do it. And that's going to lead all the way to the end of the year. And then season 4 will start at the beginning of next year. That's how we're going to do it. Because last season was a whole damn year. And I didn't know what I was doing with the podcast. I was like, we're going to keep going. I literally did a whole, over 50 episodes for season 1. It should have been cut in half, but I didn't know any better because I was new to the podcast. But now I'm trying to get my episodes together and get them more organized. So that's that. But yes, in conclusion, there is a battle that's also happening as versus. And it's not versus, but it's a battle that I think is important to talk about before I conclude this show. So this issue has come up because the 20th anniversary of Lilo and Stitch was last week. Lilo and Stitch is an iconic Disney film. And the director or producer was saying that he has been upset because people have been acting like what impact that Lilo and Stitch made, they've given that credit to Frozen on creating this film that was female driven without a male loving lead or a love interest. And people have been saying about Frozen over the years, but the director, the producer, Lilo and Stitch been on that wave back in 2002. Okay? When a little Ernest Owens was at the time 11 years old. And I loved that. Wait, was I 11? No. I was 10. Oh my God, I was 10 years old? Yeah, because I my birthday's October. Clearly came out in June. Oh my God, I was 10.
It's been 20 fucking years. Oh my god. I was 10 years old when Lilo and Stitch came out? Really? Well, we get it. Oh. Yeah, oh my god, I was 10. And then Finding Nemo came out the next year. Because Finding Nemo's turning 20 next year, y'all. Are y'all ready for that? Finding Nemo being 20 years old? I'm not processing it. I've ooh. Okay, we get to know, y'all. Good God. So anyway, Lilo and Stitch is 20 years old. Frozen came out many, many years ago. Not 2 years ago, but a couple years ago. And they're gonna make a Frozen 3, which is okay. Anyway, but Lilo and Stitch. Let me tell you about Lilo and Stitch for those who remember. Lilo and Stitch was dope as fuck. Lilo and Stitch was one of the few Disney movies, animated films that was like rated PG because Lilo and Stitch dealt with some real ass issues. Okay, these were two sisters who parents died in a bad car accident. The older sister, Nani, is basically they're in Hawaii. She is dealing with Child Protective Services, which one of the Child Protective Service agents was a black man who was voiced by Ving Rhames. Do y'all remember this? That was like coming to the house, and it was to the point where Lilo might have lost. I mean, Nana could have lost custody of Lilo, and they were real sisters dealing with real issues, yelling at each other, arguing. Stitch came in the mix, and everybody would say that the relationship was really between Lilo and Stitch. If you watch that movie again, because you could watch it on Disney Plus, I actually did. I rewatched it lately. You will actually see that the relationship, the story centered around Nani and Lilo, and Stitch was really not a lead character, but a supporting character in this family dynamic, which was incredible. Great film. Watching it now, 20 years later, I can't even believe I'm saying this. It hits completely differently. Um, and it's touching and it's great. And I'm like, damn, Disney don't make them like this anymore. I mean, I guess the Pixar films are touching too. They okay. I'm a little too hard on Disney. They do make good films still, but I just feel like they don't make them like that anymore. Because Lilo and Stitch was just ahead of its time, clearly. So when Frozen came out, which let me just say this, I'm gonna be upfront. I don't think Frozen's a bad film. I just think that Frozen is overrated. I think it's overrated. I think that there's many other films in Disney canon that are like so much better. I don't think it's the worst Disney film. I don't think it's bad. I just think that it's just overhyped, and I don't know if that's because of white people. I don't know what it is, but the anti-colorism, okay, justice for the Asian community, justice for the Pan Asian community, because Lilo was ahead of its time. Um, Mind you, people will say Momoa is a better representation of the Pacific Islander community and all that. That's true, but Lilo had made a dent. You don't get Momoa without Lilo and Stitch, in my opinion. I mean, the way that they just depicted Hawaii was beautiful. Like the artwork was gorgeous, the watercolor, it was fascinating, and it's still beautiful. I mean, like I said, I just saw it again, and the film is just great. The Elvis, I just got re-hooked to it. It is, and the thing about how successful Lilo and Stitch was is that it did not follow any of those Disney tropes. Like the characters did not sing. They did. They played Elvis songs all throughout the film, but Elvis songs were all throughout the film, but that was it. There wasn't too much singing. There was like Hawaii Roller Coaster Ride, which is such a beautiful song, but there wasn't too much other things going on like in the film as far as music go. It was a very mature, film. There was tons of spin-offs afterwards. I remember there were tons of Stitch spin-offs that I watched. There was like a TV show on Disney Channel. I think it was like several TV shows, several direct-to-video films that I remember watching when I was little. There was a lot of Lilo and Stitch merchandise. I remember having the plush teddy bears from the Disney store, when the Disney store used to have the really good plush dolls. It was just a big fucking deal. It was a great film, and it made so much money, and it was just special, and yeah, I loved it. Frozen could never.
I'm just gonna say that Frozen can never. I know that Frozen has the bigger box office hole, but I'm sorry. Real folks know that Lilo and Stitch is the better film. And like I said, if you don't believe me, watch on Disney Plus. Go check out both of the films, compare and contrast. And I promise you, Lilo is gonna pull you more than Frozen will, in my opinion. So, that's all that for now. And it's gonna be fun. I can't wait. This is the final week of June. Let's hope for the best. But as always, be well and be best. Earnestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Earnestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.